Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
This is the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. Of course, I'm your host, Roxy Lopez. Happy Friday, everybody. August 9th already. Can you believe it? We're having some fairly nice weather in Arizona, USA. Some nice monsoon weather. The rain has calmed down, but I don't mind the rain because we're in a drought, as I've explained to you before. Of course, we're going to talk about all of that drought stuff in conjunction with chemtrails later on in the month. And if you want to check on any of the upcoming guests, just go ahead and go to thetruththenight.com, hit the schedule page, and all the information is up, including my guest this evening and any contact information, etc. I want to get you some information that I think is kind of cool. It's been coming up as far as in the news, if you will. Some good news. I've got a message today, and it starts out by saying this is the best news in a long while here, guys. It comes out of Natural News Tribune, and it says dolphins have been granted, that's dolphins, have been granted, quote-unquote, non-human personhood status by the government of India, making India the first nation in the world to recognize the unique intelligence and self-awareness of the cetacean order, a class of aquatic mammals. The decision was announced by India's Minister of the Environment and Forests, which also outlawed captive dolphin shows. The ministry added that dolphins should have their own specific rights. And I'm going to give you that information, and you might want to just bookmark it for later. And again, the first country in the world to give dolphins their own rights. This is unprecedented. So I'm just thrilled about it, and I wanted to share that with you because I know a lot of you are animal lovers and wildlife lovers. I want to catch you up. Let's just do a quick a lot of you have been writing in about Snowden, and I haven't had time to catch all of you up. But far as I know, let's recap. May 20th, Snowden was a contractor working for the NSA in my home state of Hawaii. May 20th, Snowden went to Hong Kong, and by June 5th, as you well know, the Guardian newspaper published his story on the NSA surveillance based on Snowden's account of whistleblowing. August 1st, Snowden left Moscow airport, where he had been since June 23rd, after being granted temporary asylum in Russia. So actually, Snowden is at this moment, nobody actually knows where he is, and his attorney has actually said that he is not obligated to share the information with anybody. But I will say this, I don't know if any of you know the encrypted site LavaBit, but that was what Snowden used to connect with individuals via emails, encrypted emails. Well, very interesting revelation there. On Thursday, the homepage of lavabit.com was changed to a letter from the company's owner announcing that the site's operations have ceased following a 6-week-long ordeal that has prompted the company to take legal action in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. So basically, I don't think that at this point, because of LavaBit, I don't think that Snowden has an email address at this moment, which he had up until this time. And from Ladar Levinson, who is the owner and operator of LavaBit LLC, he says, what's going to happen now? We're already started preparing the paperwork needed to continue the fight for the Constitution in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. A favorable decision would allow him to resurrect LavaBit as an American company. And the owner says that the experience has taught him one very important lesson: without congressional action or a strong judicial precedent, he would strongly recommend against anyone trusting their private data to a company with physical ties to the United States. That's a very that's a huge statement. That's all I can say. To not have a company associated with the U.S. Simply because of the databasing. And of course, I don't know if all of you know that Obama canceled the meeting with Putin because of the Snowden tensions with Russia. So that was canceled, and of course he's getting all kinds of headaches about this, and meaning Obama. And but NSA leaker Edward Snowden revelations have forced the president Obama, leading the president, to announce new reforms of the government classified surveillance programs. We'll see how this all unfolds, because after his administration issued repeated defenses of a national security agency monitoring program that collects Americans' phone numbers and internet data, we all know that now, Obama announced during a press conference Friday afternoon, this afternoon, that reforms to the system will make collection activities more transparent and give the American people additional confidence that there are additional safeguards against abuse. Keep in mind, I've never seen a president use the word transparent more often than Barack Obama, and promised this, if you remember back in 2008, transparency to what? Transparency to the banks, transparency to the mortgage, transparency to government. We haven't seen transparency. The stock market, the list goes on, correct? So now he's promised, I don't think he has another card in his deck. You understand what I'm saying? I don't think he has anything more to say anymore. He's using the transparency card again. If you believe him, I would have to say that either you're very, very out of touch with reality, or you just have a bigger faith system in him than I do, because there is going to be no transparency in the NSA, and we all know this. The changes will include changing to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is FISA, the court system, which currently greenlights requests for data gathering, as well as the creation of both an international NSA position devoted to privacy and an external working group to evaluate transparency in the program. Officials will also launch a new website next week, so everybody watch for it. If you see it, send me a link to it, will you? The new website will serve as a hub for further transparency for interested members of the public. So if you, like I said, if you buy that, I've got some beautiful beachfront property right here in Phoenix, Arizona for you. And I'm, of course, being tongue-in-cheek and laughing with you, not at you. Chat room, welcome to the show. We have a very interesting guest this evening. You're going to want to pay attention. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them into the chat room. We will take them. This is going to be quite the show. I want to warn you right now that it's going to have a lot of darkness, all right? But thank God for, people like my guest who can come out, give information that is never sees the light of day, so to speak, and that's very important. The loyalty to the dark forces is literally disintegrating as humanity begins the shift by taking the reins for our own individual sovereignty, all right? Whistleblowers have become a main source of transparency to the public. Courageous individuals who are coming forth, giving up their own privacy, their own salaries, their own income, some cases their marriages, their homes where they dwell, their own safety, all right? Are whistleblowers becoming the new modern-day vigilantes? That's a question for you. And if you think they are, is this a good thing or a bad thing? I want to thank all of the whistleblowers that have come before us who offer the truth to the public, the transparency that the public needs so desperately. And they give up their whole future. They'll be in the textbooks and the history books. But at the same time, they give up everything. So I want you to keep that in mind when I invite my guest on this evening. I will not tolerate any accusations against him. I will not tolerate any bad-mouthing him. I'm going to tell you that right now. He attracts many people who want him out of the loop, and they do not want him talking about what he talks about. So we are patrolling the chat room, and we'll know if you're a troll. Okay, that's all I have to say. The gentleman's name that will be on the show this evening, he's a lovely man. His name is Max Spiers. We're going to discuss MKULTRA trauma-based mind control and recovery, the occult practices within the elite and the symbolisms, energy manipulation for power, and much more. Max Spiers was born in Canterbury, which is an historic English cathedral city which lies at the heart of the Canterbury city of Canterbury, a district of Kent in southeast England. So any of you who are tuning in from the UK, you know where Max Spiers is from. It lies on the River Stour. Max states that, quote unquote, I was involved in Project Mannequin in the UK, which is an extension of the Nazi Superman projects to create a warrior and a breeder. He has connections to Montauk and time manipulation projects. He has studied MAGIK, magic. Somebody brought that up on the show the other night, one of my guests. I think it was Norio Hayakawa. So he studied magic and esoteric thought for 15 years and became conscious of his awareness in these projects just after he turned 30 in 2008. Max currently resides in Dallas, Texas, and does what he can to do to make others aware of the global propaganda machine. Very important stuff here. If you'd like to see his links, they were dropped into the chat room at the very start. Scroll back up in the chat room and grab them, or simply go to thetruthttonight.com. All of our guests are always linked, either at the front page or the schedule page. This brings up something about the UK. I was reading something the other day that the UK in media and journalism, actually, I thought this was really fascinating, wants to make it unlawful to write about esoteric subject matters. Do you know how crazy that is, people? They want to put a stop to esoteric subject matters. Why? Maybe my guest will have an answer for that. Again, I am honored to have my guest on this evening, and I really look forward to what he has to say. He is a truth seeker, truth speaker, and a peacemaker. Welcome to the show, Max Spiers.
Hi, Roxy. How are you? Nice to be here. I'm glad that you've allowed me to have this opportunity.
Absolutely. And listen, when we get, if you and Sarah get the Skype thing figured out, we'll jump on over to Skype during the commercial.
Yeah, you've got it figured out. So maybe at the break, then
yes.
What I'll do is I'll jump on there at the break.
Okay, and then we'll see how that works. So we'll just relax, it's like I've invited you over to my house for a cup of tea, and we're fine. Okay, so right. Max, again, one of the things that I enjoy about you, you have a very kind face in your photographs, and your voice is very kind. I've met a lot of people who do whistleblowing and major exposure. Very few are calm like you are. I want to know first and foremost, before we really get into your life's history and what you share with the world today, how do you stay calm and peaceful? How do you stay happy? And how do you stay so balanced?
I didn't for the longest time, and I would say that through the majority of the 2000s, so from 1999 up until about 2012, was extremely chaotic for me. And especially in 2008, when in March of 2008, I had a rush over a 3-week period of all these memories that came back to me. I found out that around the age of 30, when the altars are created, there's a bleed through that happens, and usually around 30, 31, the memories come back, and either they wipe you out, they kill you, or they will put you into an institution. So
May I ask, Max, who is they?
That would be the consciousness behind these programs in the first place. So then it's levels, layers of an onion. So On one level, it is the alphabet soup agencies, so NSA, MI6. And on another level, it's off planets, so it's actually connected in the highest levels, connected to the Orion group, the Orion star system, Alpha Draconis.
Okay, and
they're the ones. Yeah, go ahead.
The Orion group. Okay, Max, let's start from the beginning, so that the audience may also have a clear vision of what you're trying to relate. When did this start for you? As far as you went, you in 2008, you had, like you said, all of the recollections started coming into dreams, coming into awareness of what you had been a party to or involved in or a victim of, whatever it may be. Where did it begin? Were you a young child? What were those memories that were flashing through your mind in 2008?
I'd always known that I was involved and there was something wrong, because I had memories as a child before 2008 that didn't fit, that didn't make sense. And I had, I'll go into a story for you very quickly. My best friend when I was at school was a girl, and her name was Meredith Kennedy. And interestingly enough, the initials there are MK. And she is from the Kennedy family. Now, her parents were both scientists. And my mother and my father went to the University of Sussex, and both her parents were scientists at the University of Sussex as well, which is a very predominant university in the UK. It's also one of the main arms of the Tavistock Institute, which comes out of London. The Tavistock Institute was created by Freud, and had Joseph Mengele had a hand in it, which was used to basically mind control the general populace of the UK in this, which began in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So Sussex University then became an arm of the Tavistock Institute. Now, I remember... yes, go ahead.
Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Somebody from the chat room asked if you could speak up just a little bit more while we're still on the phone call. You think there you go. Thank you so much.
Okay, is that better now? Can you hear me clearer now?
It is.
Okay. So Sussex University is an arm of the Tavistock Institute. And so I was going to a kindergarten at Sussex University. Now, I attended that university with my friend Meredith Kennedy. Now, sometimes her parents would say to her, we're going to the lab, it would be late at night, we're going to the lab, why don't you bring Max along? So Meredith and I would go to the university, and we'd go to the lab. Now, when we pull up in the car, I was about 4 or 5 years old. When we pull up in the car, as we were about to get out of the car, I would remember her mother, her name was Christina, would say a word, and I can't remember now what the word was, but when she would say the word, I would black out. And then the next memory would be we'd be getting back into the car, maybe 2 hours of time had gone by, and then we'd be driving home. But as I was so little, I didn't put two and two together. I just thought I didn't think anything of it. This would happen on a weekly basis, and I had flash memories when I got into my teens of being around a lot of people in white lab coats, and like on top of silver tables and things going on like that. But I dismissed them because I didn't want to think about it, and I thought it was connected with dreams. What I found out in time is the estate that I was growing up on, which was just outside Brighton, in the UK, the school I went to, and some of the friends that are around were all connected in. This has to be all connected in. My family members had to be MK'd to a certain extent, so that no mistakes happen. So over time, I realized that everyone was involved. The reason that I was picked before birth because of my genetic stream, because of my DNA. Now, my DNA stems from the Charlemagne bloodline on both sides of my family. My father's bloodline is from the Huguenot family, which is an offshoot of the Merovingians, and my mother's side is connected directly to the Merovingian family, so they both come from the same line. So it's connected to the French Revolution and the French royal family. And interwoven in that is also some Celtic blood too. So they were looking for the Celtic blue bloods and the French blue bloods because of that magic, and had been practiced for hundreds of years in these families before. So it's ingrained within this on a cellular level that I would have those abilities. So they picked me for that project for that reason. That's the base. That's the reasons why I got chosen for that. Now,
Max, when you said the Charlemagne bloodline, are you speaking of the same Charles the Great?
Charles the Great. I know the Charlemagne. He's the one. It's 800, about 800 A.D.
Yes, that's Charles the Great, also known as Charles the Great. Okay, I was just making sure. I just want to be clear. Wow, that's incredible. That's 800 A.D. So, oh my goodness,
yes.
That's quite some time. Okay, and so basically, you were part of, and this is nothing new, and I don't think the listeners know it as anything new. You know, the bloodlines are always so very important. So that actually makes sense that your whole family was involved in this, and that's why you were chosen prior to even being born. It sounds like with your mother and father, all children that they would have would be slated for this type of life.
Now, I'm the only child from my biological mother and father. And what I believe in how this works is that there is something, they are remotely influenced to get together and then to have a child. I was the only child from that pairing. Now, somehow they implanted my mother and father at some point when they were children so that they would re-find each other at a certain time and that I would be born. Now, there are connections to Canada also because I was actually conceived whilst in Nelson in Canada. And there was the Nelson race in Canada, the Q552 race in Canada, which has connections to Project Ibis. I have connections to that as well. But I didn't grow up in that base, in that underground base, because I was brought back to the UK and I was born on December 22nd, 1976 in Brighton. On paper, that's what it says. I think I was induced so that I would be born on winter solstice. I'm 2 minutes into the winter solstice because of the energy that date gives. They wanted me to be born on that date. As soon as I was born, they took me away from my mother. They drugged my mother, took me away from my mother, and because I know I've seen images of this, because when it happened, I left my body. When you traumatize a child, the child then leaves the body. If it's done in the right way, the child leaves the body, and that's how an altar is made. Well, as soon as I was born, they put electrodes on my shoulders and on my back, and they gave me high-level electric shocks. Now, I actually have on my right shoulder a birthmark, which still burns to this day. If it's even just slightly touched, it burns. It's about 2 inches by 2 inches. And what I see now is the memories I see when they did it. My whole body shocked up, and then I'm in the corner of the room looking down on my body, and like a tiny baby's body, and they're creating altars immediately. I also know that they traumatized me while I was in the womb with my mother as well. I think I was genetically put together.
And welcome back to The Truth Tonight. Our guest tonight is Max Spiers. And Max, if you want to come back on the air, we'll see if we can hear you. The new connection. Go ahead. Nope, can't hear him. Okay, so what we're dealing with, people, just to keep you in the loop, we're trying to connect through a cleaner line, and we're unable to hear Max for some strange reason. So, Thomas, if you can get Max back on the phone, we're just probably going to have to continue using the phone for the interview. So, yeah. And everyone, what we were talking about is a really interesting way of being brought up, and as well through the this bloodline that Max was talking about, and these types of rituals. Yes, Max, how you doing? I'm sorry, even though we were connected to you, we still couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to
That's
make sure
okay.
that I speak up when you can hear me clearly.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So, where you were, go ahead and continue where you were before the break.
Okay, where was I? I can tell you. On the surface as well, I had a seemingly normal childhood, because there's screen memories and there has to be normalcy going on. Otherwise, the child would make too much of a fuss. And I had also a lot of love connected with my family as well. It's just there was a split side of that went on, that was something completely different that was hidden from me. Now, another thing that happened when I was first born is that a line went down. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. A line went down the center of my body, and half of me turned red and half of me turned yellow. And I remember people coming in and taking photographs of that, and they called it the Harlequin effect, which is different to a Harlequin baby, but they called it the Harlequin effect. And it lasts for about 5 minutes, and it's in the British Medical Journal. Now, what I was later to find out that was connected to was that my biological father is connected to the Alpha Draconis star system. He's one of the albino Dracos. And my mother is from the higher dimensional angelic realms. So the split that I had down me is very unusual, because I'm carrying both the DNA of both those types of things within this physical body. So it makes me there's an internal struggle and an internal war that I have going on. That's why there's all the twos in my birthday, 12/22. Also, the Harlequin is also known as the Joker or the Fool. And in the tarot card deck, the Fool is the major arcana card number 22. So I'm resonating with the Fool card in the tarot card deck, which is also 0 and 22, which represents the beginning and the end. So what it is half of my life was basically blacked out from me, and I was consciously only aware of one other half. In my name is actually encoded as well. So my name is Maxwell Spiers, and it's what it's saying. So Max, the word Max means extreme. Well, which is leads into the ground, so it leads to the lower, more dense dimensions, and Spiers, which comes from the word spiral, which leads up. So it gives me the ability to walk down through the lower frequencies or go up through the higher frequencies. Does that make sense?
Wow, that's really interesting. And that's obviously the name was on purpose.
Yes. My two middle names are just connected to the Charlemagne and bloodline. But my actual name there, it's an encoded name.
Now, did you said, let's back up a little bit before we really get into some other even darker sides of this. You mentioned that you did have a loving family. Throughout the years or after 2008, when you awoke to these images and connecting the dots type of ordeal, have you spoken to your mother or your father or any other family members about this?
I've spoken to my mother, and I've tried. My mother's been supportive to a certain level, but some of this stuff, she was kind of heavily into the occult. I was actually brought up around the occult and understanding. I had a pretty deep understanding of the occult from when I was very young.
Can you tell us what cult, the occult, exactly what genre of the occult, and what are some of the things?
Okay. Yeah. So the word occult, anyway, the true meaning of the word occult, it just means hidden. So anything that's hidden from the conscious mind. The occult generally deals with the subconscious. Now, if I just break that down for you really quickly, the conscious mind is the seen, is the above ground. The subconscious is the underground. The male energy would be conscious, seen. Female energy would be subconscious. So most of the occult is run through feminine, the divine feminine, or it can be dark or light, but it's the feminine energy force. I learned, I was a natural astrologer, I naturally understood archetypes, so I picked up on understanding tarot card readings very easily. I understood the theory and understanding of the concepts of magic with a K. They put Aleister Crowley put the K on the end of magic to define it as different from the magic with a C, which is more of conjurers. So the K was added on the end. Also, K is the most powerful letter of the alphabet. It's the number 11, and in Egyptian symbology, K is the symbol for the serpent. So the K was added on there for that reason. So I was always interested in magic from very young, from 11, 12. I think so that was already connected into me on a cellular level. I have memories of other lives in this body still, but I have memories of other lives being and working as a magician.
Okay, and fair enough. And so it sounds like you came into this lifetime with quite a bit conscious already. Certain aspects of your life were very conscious by a young age. And then your parents being involved in the cult. Could you even just describe, was it just a belief system? Did you go somewhere and do rituals? Was it a Bohemian Grove type of relationship where you have many of your relatives there, or friends and family, and very private and hush from the public? Exactly what type of occult upbringing did you have?
So I guess you could call it a basic pagan understanding, where I was taught by my mother that it was the earth and the trees and the elements were working in conjunction with life, and that was life force. And I think that there was other things going on, but I think that when rituals went on, I can feel like an emotional thing happening now. When rituals went on, I was triggered, and so that I didn't have any memory of it. So on the surface, this was very light-hearted and not at all dark. But I know that my mother was. I was born into a multi-generational satanic family. This has been going on generation after generation after generation. It's just kept quiet. This is how it works. You don't just get random. This is not just the beginning. I was not the beginning of this. I believe that I was my consciousness and my energy field, my energy signature was sold hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and was planned. This was planned to happen at this point already. So yeah. So this is multi-generational. It's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, and even before Charlemagne. Charlemagne is just one of the offshoots of the tribe of Dan. I'm a descendant of the tribe of Dan. And before Charlemagne, you have the Spartans, and before that, there's the Roman Empire, and connected to the Anunnaki from Sumeria, and which goes back 50,000 years before that. And so the reason I was chosen for this project is because I have Anunnaki DNA, which is what they call blood prime. And I have rhesus negative blood prime. And that's why they chose me for this project. It allows higher parts of oxygen to run through my blood, so it allows faster thinking, faster reactions, and faster muscle growth and building.
Okay. And what is the project you're referring to? Why you were chosen for the project? Can we talk about that?
Yeah. What I think was my grandfather, the father of my mother, was captured by the Japanese right at the beginning of World War II, and he spent the entire Second World War in a Japanese prisoner of war camp called Changi Jail. And when he was in there, he was being completely programmed. So as to when he actually became a pretty famous actor. But when he came out, there was extreme programming done to my mother and her sister. This has a lot to do with sexual stuff, as I had a lot of sexual abuse in my history, because when the sexual abuse is one of the main easiest ways to split the personality. It's cool. I don't know how graphic you want me to go into that, but when a little boy of 3, it has to be of 3 years old, so a little boy of 3 years old, which happened to me, is raped, there's something that happens called vasovagal shocks, where the energy then shoots from the base of the spine up to the top of the spine and the back of the neck, and then explodes into the head and creates a honeycomb. and then when like a honeycomb of altars. And then if the person knows what they're doing, they can then program each one of those altars. Well, this happened also to my mother and her sister as well. I've never said this before, and I try and avoid talking about that their business too much, but it's a fact that did happen, and they were both involved in rituals as well. So they were then programmed to program me, and the same thing happened, and this was continuous. It was continuous. My memories came back in 2008. I remember the types of tortures that were going on, and they always involved sexual abuse. Because what they see as a 3-year-old boy, the innocence in a 3-year-old boy, essentially what they, quote-unquote, they are trying to do is attack the source or attack the creative force in any possible way they can. So by sexually abusing and torturing little boys, they see that as an attack towards, quote-unquote, God. That's what they're doing. And also in the process, they're creating undetectable mind control slaves, because the best mind control slave is the one that doesn't know he is that. Project Mannequin was the project that I was born into, basically, which is an NSA MI6 project. What they were trying to do is an extension of the Nazi Uberman, Superman project, where they were trying to create a perfect soldier or psychic assassin or sleeper agent. And they had been trying this over and over again. They'd been tracing bloodlines since the 50s with something called Project Oak Tree. So since the 50s, they were following bloodlines. My mother was born in 1952, so they followed her bloodline, and my father was born in 1954. They remotely influenced them to get together because they needed the combined DNA of those two. My mother is blonde blue. My father is dark-haired, green-eyed, Celtic, although they both do stem from French. But they needed those two bloodlines to come together to create me, and there was the split.
Correct. And I can hear the tension in your voice, too, when you describe some of the abuse, because I can't even imagine the level of abuse, especially if a lot of it, as you described earlier, the conscious and the subconscious. And when something's happened on the subconscious and it's not conscious, it's like that's what therapy and psychologists, that's why they were invented, to dig into that subconscious and bring it to the conscious for people who go crazy. So I can't even imagine what it's like to have all of this going down on the underlying deep subconscious levels, but then in your conscious life, sounds like completely unaware and just being a child and going with the flow, and what you're raised to become. Right? Okay. So
I was then sent to private school. I was sent to private boarding schools when I turned 8 or 9. A lot of the British private...
Max, was this to alienate you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I was sent to the private boarding schools, and I was sent to a pretty prestigious private boarding school also, because these private schools are also pre-programming. But the private schools and the upper echelon universities also continue the programming. So this is all set out. This is basically, I have had a basically scripted life, this one. I mean, there are flags, symbolic flags that I get to, and I can make different choices to get to each flag. But basically, this lifetime has been scripted out. And so they already know what's going on. They have technology called Project Looking Glass. And if they put my energy signature into this technology when I was born, and they can have a basic 99% overview of what's going to happen in my life, who's going to be there. They also know in my past lives, incarnations, things that have happened, they know exactly who to put in my way to cause me problems. And they've done everything possibly that they can to make me not realize who and what has gone on and who's done it.
What do they want from you, Max, at this point? Because you've become awake, you started to connect the dots, you're becoming more and more aware of this is all real. In other words, what do they want from you now? Do they still own you? Do they still want you?
Okay, so from in 2008, in March of 2008, when I realized, because all the information came back, I was very lucky to survive that on two levels. One, that the amount of downloaded information that came into my head at that point, most people wouldn't be able to take, because I saw everything, or I saw a whole lot of information. I was shown that actually my life wasn't what I thought it was at all. And a lot of the characters in my life, I was shown that they were actually sort of actors in a stage play, and that were placed in there, and they weren't even what I thought they were. When I realized that there was an attempt on my life that night, I got attacked out of nowhere at 3 o'clock in the morning by 3 people, and almost got. I was triggered into a child altar. So they often triggered me into a 6-year-old. Because these guys who do this like sex with 6-year-old boys, 5-year-old boys, so they have triggers to trigger me into that age. But what they did at this point is they triggered me into a 5-6-year-old altar, and then they beat me. So they were trying to. I couldn't fight back because I thought I was 5 or 6, so I had the strength of a 5 or 6-year-old, and I would be sent to a coma for 3 or 4 days. And when I don't even know what happened while that was going on. I was in a hospital. I didn't know where I was. Then they put me into a 72-hour hold because I was so confused about what was going on. And then after that, I came out, and they had done something to repress my memories back down again. But because I'm a survivor, and because my main goal of this, Roxy, is because I want other people to come forward and talk about help who've gone through this trauma. And this can never happen anymore. This has to stop happening. So I fought. It was a war that was going inside of myself. Like, am I crazy? Am I completely crazy? Well, no, I'm not. I'm not. I realize that I'm not now. So I straightened my head out and continued on with speaking about it. Now, as I've continued on over the last 4 years, there have been numerous attempts on my life. At least 5 or 6, in different ways. And I can have that backed up by people who've been around me. I've had black helicopters follow over me. I've had black SUVs. And I had one the other day when I said I was going to do this interview, pull up in front of my apartment and take photographs of me standing there. I actually got a picture of them taking a picture of me. It's kind of a comedy at this point. But so what do they want from me? They either want me to I could make a deal where I would shut up and say that I would work for them and do what they need to do. And if I did that, I would be given money and whatever I wanted. But then essentially I'm signing my free will away. Or I continue doing what I'm doing and have very, very little, but then change the world that way.
Right, and I appreciate it. I want to interject here briefly that I have interviewed quite a few people, some who have passed away within the last year, young people, people like military soldier John Vasquez, who was part of John, of the Fort Benning incident. I knew John very well. We spoke offline on the telephone. John was kind, and he'd been through a lot. And a lot of people do not realize that, May 30th of this year, he died, and really no explanation. And in March, his ex-wife, who they were good friends, it was the mother of his son, she was found dead in her bed. No overdose, no anything. And prior to that, the last show that I had done with him, Command Sergeant Major James Norton, he died about 2 weeks after the show that he did with us, all of us. And I had some other military men contact me about 2 weeks after John died, and they really reached out to me, Max, and now they've disappeared. So there is something to all of this, and I want the listeners to know this, how valid this is. No matter what, whether it's our military or something that you've gone through as well, Max, when it is a secret program, and they are invested in manipulating the individual, the child, into a grown-up something or other. They are using you. They need you for something on many different levels. When you do start speaking out like those who have come before us, really strange events begin to happen. So I want to reach out to my audience right now. And I want to ask that every time you hear this program, because it will be in an archive, and every time you hear about Max, I would like you to send out a protection for Max, because it works. Because as I had said in the beginning of the program, we are unifying rapidly on this planet, and we need to stand with our family, our Earth family. So I'm just requesting that from my audience and for everyone who ever listens to this show in the future, Max, for your protection and your safety.
I can tell you as well as I'm speaking here that when I'm communicating on 2 or 3 different levels as well. So if this is re-listened to, there'll be layered other information in there. Because when 2 people communicate, like you and I are communicating now, we're not just communicating through the words that we're saying to each other. In the inflections of the voice and the sounds and the words in the silence in between the words also speak volumes as well. And there's information in there for very specific people.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Amazing. So let's continue on. We're going to probably take a break here in a couple of minutes, but let's continue on with the where you're at, and that you have had, attempts on your life. And obviously you've got the men in black watching out for you. And if you surrendered and did what they said and became a high level something or other, you'd be fine. Or so to speak, but they burn you. You know, we all know that. They use you and they burn you.
Yes. Yes.
So it's really not a deal at all. Your freedom is valuable. Have you met others? Because that's where you left off. Have you met others who are also experiencing what you're experiencing and have been through what you've been through?
Yes. So I went through a very similar same project as a man named James Casbolt. We went through a twinning ceremony when we were born, and so we went through the same things. It's just I got to a point where our ideologies and doctrines and thoughts separated off, where I don't believe in any of the Nazi doctrine at all. I don't believe in the oppression of any races. I don't believe in subjugation of any races. Michael, and I have a lot of respect. I'm calling him Michael Prince now, but that is James Casbolt. I have a huge amount of respect for Michael. It's just I have to go with what I believe, and he has to go with what he believes. So I have a lot of memories with Michael as children, and he is an incredibly strong individual, and he has worked very hard himself to get this information out. We're just coming from it from different perspectives. As far as anybody else, there's been a couple of other ones.
You know, this whole idea that you've been bred, to be a warrior and a breeder. What's it for? Fighting for the earth, conquering the earth. I mean, who's behind it all? Who's behind the curtain in this? You did mention there are different groups of individuals, but they're all tied in. Is the Illuminati part of this? Are secret societies all part of this? You know what I mean?
I can explain that. So the Illuminati is just a Latin word which means the illuminated ones. It comes from the word Lucifer means light bearer. So somebody who bears the light, somebody who shines the light. So any Luciferian, this comes from the Luciferian doctrine. What they have done is through the Lemurian and Atlantean mystery schools, which was 100,000 years ago, 150,000 years ago, They kept the true knowledge and the true information of how everything works and the natural nature of this planet and how it works to themselves, to the tiny few. And then when Atlantis fell 13,000 years ago, their first civilization that was born out of that, with that Illuminati concept, was the Egyptian civilization. And there's actually a book called The Slaves Shall Serve. And what you have to see is the ruling elite now in the 21st century are not any different. They're not different beings than the ruling elite of the pharaohs that were back 6, 7, 8,000 years ago. This is the same consciousness. They just have different spacesuits on. I'm calling their bodies spacesuits because they just change bodies. So the Freemasonry and the Mormon Church have been very powerful ways to conceal the truth about what's going on. And they keep the true information for themselves, and they give the masses a 5th grade education about what's going on. So it's a cheat. They're cheating. They're cheating, essentially. They're they're like bullies, and they would be the equivalent analogy would be their 25-year-old men messing around and abusing 10-year-old kids, telling them lies, and ruling the world that way. The Illuminati itself are an off-planet race. There's been wars ongoing for control of Gaia or Earth for a long time. Gaia seems to be a gem in this corner of the universe. I think the entire planet itself is a stargate. So it's very important to them. And it also had huge gold reserves here. And the Anunnaki were looking for gold, or monoatomic gold, to power their ships. So the Anunnaki, that's a Sumerian word, which means gods from the sky, or came from the sky. That is actually a reference to a specific race. And they are the ones who've had their hand in controlling this system set up that we have right now. What they did is they created a slave race. Zachariah Sitchin, I believe, is about 50% correct in his books. From the research I've done and from the information that I got downloaded, he's off on some of it, and I think he disinforms. But from what I can get, they created a slave race because they didn't want to do the mining themselves. A natural form of the human body has 12-strand DNA. And when we have 12-strand DNA, we are completely aware and completely conscious of everything. And what they did is they cut that down just to 2-strand DNA. And that is the essential symbolic fall of man, from 12-strand to 2-strand. Now, we're all walking around here with 2-strand DNA, and it's no surprise that they call this the planet of amnesia. Well, the reason we have amnesia is because it's so dense down here, and because we're walking around with 2-strand DNA. We're trying to work out everything, but we don't have the tools to do it because they've been taken away. We've been manipulated not to be able to do it. Now, most of the people down here have come down here for the experience of what's about to go on now, because there's the awakening period. We're going through the end of the age of Pisces, which is the Pisces ages. There was the Jesus age, which began around 0 and up to now 2000, 2012, 2015, and opening into the new age of Aquarius, which is the expansive age, which is kind of like the looking out to the stars age. But the Christian and the Catholic concepts of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit and all that manipulation that's gone on to control the masses has to die now. But that was, this has all been made. All the religions, essentially, and I don't mean to offend anybody at all, and I would not put any pressure on anybody can believe what they want to believe. I'm just aware that the religions were there and put into place to manipulate human beings through fear, because fear is the greatest way to manipulate anybody. So on the second tier, the Anunnaki is in control. They are from a planet called Nibiru and Sirius B, actually, and they have their hand on what's going on. But in truth, the Orion group, or the Orion reptilians from the Alpha Draconis star system, are above the Anunnaki. And there is a war going on now, a huge war going on between these two reptilian factions, because the Anunnaki feel they've had control for this long and they don't want to let go of control. and the Orion group are now coming in saying that they want it back. So you've got this war going on between two factions. One is a the Orion group are shape-shifting reptilians. They're able to hold the human form through the satanic rituals that go on. And the Anunnaki are a sort of AI reptilian group too. So they also have a fake flesh on their outside. They're not shapeshifters in the same way, but they are warring against each other.
They're warring against each other off planet, do you think?
No, it's happening on planet. It's happening right here.
It's happening here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that the large number of the increasing large number of global UFO sightings, does this have anything to do with the Anunnaki and the Orion group?
I think that's conditioning, and I think two things there. As the vibration of the planet raises, they are unable to keep people from not being able to see it anymore. You see, because they've always been there. It's just because of the density of everything, and because of they lock down all the female energy vortex points on the planet by building pyramids and by building standing stones on all the feminine energy points. And when you repress the feminine energy on the planet, you repress the creative force, and thus you don't have, your third eye then becomes closed more, and you're not able to see it. Well, as the feminine energy on the planet raises and rises up again, eyes begin to open more, and then we'll have the ability to see things that we couldn't see before.
Right, and may I ask, for yourself, have you been able to, for instance, do you have two-strand DNA? And if you don't, what do you have? And are you able to see things that those of us who have two-strand DNA cannot see?
I do. I walk around on a daily basis with two-strand DNA, but then in the astral realm, I'm a natural lucid dreamer, and I can astral project naturally. And at that point, so the etheric, my etheric body can leave my physical body, and at that point, I'm working on 12-strand DNA. So I know what it feels like to have 12-strand DNA. What they did to me when I was born is I have extremely high Kundalini energy. And Kundalini energy is the creative force energy which allows things to be manifest in 3D. Anything to be manifest has to be used through Kundalini energy. Now, these reptilians don't have that at all. So what they have to do is they have to filter and steal it from beings who have that kind of high energy. So they're building they're genetic masters. They're genetically building beings with high Kundalini energy, stealing the energy from them, and then creating a world around them with that stolen energy. Now, I remember when I was 3, 4, and 5 years old having orgasms, and at that age, you shouldn't be having those. That shouldn't be happening. It didn't make any sense to me. I didn't understand it. But I would have images flash through my head. And then now I know what they were. Now I know that I was having orgasms, and what was actually happening was a screen memory placed over me, and they were stealing that energy from me. So they were stealing it to create whatever you can create. If you have enough Kundalini energy from a high vibrational charge, you can create companies, businesses, and that energy can create fame or money or anything like that. These beings don't have an energy center. That's where the vampire concept comes from. Just below the navel is an energy force center. Now, these beings come down here without that energy force center, whereas most of us can feed ourselves and create that. So we eat well, we take care of ourselves, that energy center grows, and then we create that way. They don't have it. So they have to set their energy, the tendrils, essentially, out to others, manipulate them emotionally. Fear is the best emotion, anger, fear, any of those things. And when they invoke those emotions, they steal the emotions and put them into themselves. So they feel that and they create that way. Does that make sense, Roxy?
Yes, it does. I mean, I can wrap my mind around what you're actually saying. I just can't wrap my mind around how they're like this. Are they mutated? Is there something wrong with them?
I believe that, okay, so we can go back right to the beginning, and I believe right at the beginning, Source wanted to be able to experience itself in every single possible way. And when Source wanted to experience itself in every possible way, it separated off and split into, certainly in this dimension anyway, it split into dual. And when it split into dual, one half was the opposing side to creation, and one half was the creation side. In truth, they are us. All the reptilians are just a manifestation, a physical manifestation of our own fears. And we're trying to embrace. If you hate them, you're going to give them more power. If you understand, it's the Carl Jung concept of the id, or the shadow, and embracing the shadow and understanding and integrating it back into self will be the way to heal, rather than to go to war with it. Because in truth, whatever you fight, you become.
This is very true, and thanks so much for saying that, because my next question was going to be, I do a lot of work with people all over the world. I get to meet people, is what I'm saying. And I think you're seeing this, I'm seeing this, many of my colleagues are seeing this. There seems to be that split that you're talking about. I do see, for the most part, Max, a lot of people coming together, a lot of people really trying to do something about this, and it really makes sense when you express it in the two-strand DNA manner of we're doing a pretty good job here for as much of our memory as they've taken away from us. I think we're all doing such a great job. Yes, and what we're doing, when I say we, I mean humanity.
I agree.
Okay, so we are waking each other up. There's something that's happening that's sort of like what happened to you, Max. It's like something jogged the memory, something triggered the memory. So is it possible, and I'm getting goosebumps when I'm saying this, is it possible that what we are doing is triggering each other to remember who we are?
Yes. That is exactly what we're doing, because in truth, the human race is just one thing, splintered into many other offshoot pieces of consciousness. It's just one thing. And so we are triggering each other to wake up from the slumber that we've been in for about 100,000 years. And the 100 monkey syndrome does work, which is the concept of when 100 people know something, all of a sudden, spontaneously, somebody else knows it without even knowing why they know it. So spreading this information does actually work that way.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's really come up quite often. It's coming up with every guest now, so it's fabulous. Just when I think the show is going to go one way, it goes right here where we are at right now. So every show, so it's fabulous. With this in mind, out there in the world, I have noticed that there are a peculiar few, and it's getting to be just a few that really stand out as being afflicted and dark and really destructive. What is happening to these types of people, in your opinion? Why are they like this?
I think you have a lot of people walking around that you see on the streets and on television are actually now clones and empty vessels. They are essentially remotely influenced and remotely controlled beings. They don't have, I can now at this point, the eyes tell you everything about somebody. If you look at the eyes, a lot of these people have non-reflective eyes. They don't reflect the light. That's indicative of a being that is being controlled. So they're AI. They're artificially intelligent, and they are controlled like a hive mind. They're invoking emotional energy reactions from people, and then feeding that energy back to a queen bee somewhere. Now, actually, the Queen of England, she actually works like that. She has a lot of people working for her out there who are in different countries that will invoke huge emotional reactions, and then that energy will be brought back to her and her people. So at this point, I think we're looking at 30 or 40% of the people on this planet are empty vessels and not even there. And I don't believe there are 7 billion people on the planet either. I think there are a lot less than that.
Do you really?
Yes, I think that's a false figure. Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's wow! I've never heard anybody say that. Interesting. And unless I could go around the world and count them one by one, how would we prove any differently? Very interesting that you say that. So, how many people do you think or surmise that there are on the planet?
A bit close to close to 1 billion.
Really?
Yes.
Now, why would they have us believe? Why would they have us believe that there's over 7 billion people on the planet right now?
Because it makes everybody think that we're all more crushed in than we really are. It makes more confusion and more chaos, and makes people think, something has to be done. Go ahead.
That's interesting, Max. Real brief.
Yeah.
I was doing, what is it? China has 2.5 billion people, and the United States is roughly 310 million people, which is only a third of 1 billion people. And but did you know? You probably know this already, but then I thought it's interesting what you're saying, because the land mass of China is the same exact land mass of the United States.
Right.
And I thought, 2.5 billion people live in China?
Yeah. Something doesn't make sense there.
Something doesn't. You're absolutely right. Yes. I imagine we're at 310 million and we think we're crowded. What would it look like at 2.5 billion people in just the mainland USA?
So what they're trying to do to create a new world order, to create a global tyranny, they have to get rid of the last superpower. And the way they're trying to get rid of the last superpower is the U.S. In fact, it is controlled by the U.K., but on a conscious level, the last superpower is the U.S. So they will, and China is the threat right now. So they're using the U.S. to destroy the U.S. They're undermining the U.S. They're making it feel stupid. The whole George W. Bush thing was to make the U.S. a laughing stock. Now they're also saying that China is going to become more powerful, and what better way than doing it than saying, look at the size of their army compared to our army. We're not going to have a chance. It's all about self-esteem on a collective level, and they're trying to crush that way.
Well, and I don't know if the listening audience realizes that China is the biggest army, on land, foot, men.
Yeah.
They are 25% of the world's population. What's interesting about that, China, 25% of the world's population lives in China. Wow, that's pretty crazy, so to speak, because you're actually debating that with me at the moment. And the other part is that coming from the U.S., I don't know if people realize this as well, that the U.S. military funding is bigger than all other militaries put together of the world. So I don't know if that's true. It's been stated. So
I think that's part of the soap opera drama that they do, and I don't pay too much attention to that.
Okay.
I just wanted to go back real quickly to what I was saying about the split, about the Harlequin thing that I had going on, which is the split that I had down the middle. That allows me to access the higher and lower dimensions at the same time, which is very unusual, but it means that I could go either way, and I have the option to go either way. I think all of us at some point have worked for the dark side. If we're here now, we at some point in some lifetime, we've worked for the dark side to further the agenda, to further the grand architect. The grand architecture is when everything is finally done, the capstone will be placed on top of the pyramid, and that's why when you look at the dollar bill, it's not quite sitting on there yet. It's just slightly above. When the New World Order is all put together, that capstone will be placed on, and that will be the end. That will be the final thing. We've all at some point worked consciously or unconsciously for that agenda in other lifetimes, and this lifetime that I have been given a choice to go either way, a very definitive and a very defined choice to go either way. And I have had deals and offers made to me So to say, look, if you come with that, if you come this way and you do this, if you sell this person out, if you do this, you can have whatever you want. And it's been clearly told to me that. And so I have a very clear, I feel both of these energy bodies in my physical body at one time. I'm aware of both of them. I hear them there. And this is outside the numerous altars that I have from the trauma. This is my actual energy body is of two souls within one body. Does that make sense? Are you understanding that?
Yes, it does. I have a question about that.
Okay.
The polarity that we all have, left and right, as humans, wouldn't you, in all fairness, say that we all go through that, though? We're all pulled to do something not so nice over something that's really loving. We're pulled in both directions as far as, just life choices constantly, which can feel like we are being occupied, if you will, by two different types of personalities or spirits, one being a very negative and one being a very positive, loving. What would be, you know what I'm saying?
We were built that way. Okay. We were built, when the Anunnaki built this species, they used reptilian DNA as the base, and then they use mammalian DNA over the top of it. When a child is in the womb, it goes through stages. And one of the stages it goes through is it looks exactly like a reptile. And then it goes through looking like a fish, and then it goes through looking like a mammal. So every human being has that. Has that separate split of DNA, and that is actually the two-strand DNA that we're talking about, reptilian and mammalian. What I'm talking about is literally two different entities sharing the same body.
Okay.
I'm talking about an albino Draco reptilian and an angelic being, an inner earth angelic being in the same body at the same time.
And no disrespect intended on this next one, but can you kick one of them out?
What do you mean?
Well, you've got two different beings occupying one vehicle, your body. Could you get rid of one of the beings?
No, because they're integrated to me. And the whole point of my lesson here is to accept and understand why that's happened to me in the first place, and to integrate what, quote unquote, the negative being is into me, and accept it. And I think that's what that's going back to what I was saying earlier, that any of these negative things, these negative forces that are here, are a physical manifestation of the fears that human beings have. When we were separated away from Source, the further we got away from Source, the more frightened we got, and we sort of started whistling in the dark to keep ourselves occupied and not so frightened. And when we did that, the fear, every time we get terrified of something, that then manifests into a situation. And when a collective en masse people get terrified, when there's a war, or when the 9/11 thing happened, and there was all that fear in one go, that manifests into a physical form. That's how you create the reality of a manifest physical being, negative physical being. And when we accept that is the case, and when we accept that they are just parts of our own self, which is our fear, then they cease to exist anymore.
Is that part of our normal evolution, do you think?
There's nothing normal about what's going on this planet. It was an experiment. This was supposed to be a human experiment, and it's failed. The human experiment has failed. It hasn't worked out. But that was part of what we were supposed to do. Yeah, we were supposed. There's been so much intervention on this planet and messing around, and so many universal rules have been broken. They've come in, you're not supposed to mess around with an evolving species, and they've come in and so many different ones have messed with us that the experiment has failed. So something has to change and something has to go on and be different now. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, Roxy. I don't know.
Understood. And I was going to ask you, the only thing that I can say what you're talking about is really shocking. With Max Spiers, our guest, and he just really sort of let us know of some very alarming information. It actually makes sense, Max. the whole idea that you have mentioned and so eloquently and so accurately. I have a question about something you were speaking about a little bit earlier, and then we'll go into Montauk. But the AI, as you referred to AI, artificial intelligence. The planet seems to be really getting hammered by artificial. We're having, we've got computers and we have, artificial, should I say, virtual reality sort of methods of meeting people and socialization. We've got artificial weather, artificial food, artificial intelligence and media and all the rest. I mean, everything seems to be going towards artificial. Who's doing that?
I think that, so if you look at this reptilian species as an artificial intelligence species, they're trying to make us as much like them as possible. Think of how many millions of people are Googling something on a daily basis. Those questions that are going through is filtering through a huge supercomputer. And then that is beginning to understand. Like also with music, there's all these Facebook music apps now. So they learn what music you like. They learn everything about you. So this computer now is understanding exactly how we think and when we're going to think it. And so that transhumanism plays a big part in this. They think that the human beings are inefficient, too emotional, and are not working out as a proper efficient species. So they want to integrate artificial intelligence into the human body to make it a better worker race. They want to have androgyny. They want to have it so that it's neither male nor female, because that the splice between the two is less efficient. These reptilian beings, these Orion reptilian beings, are androgynous, so they feel that they are better than we are. And so they're the ones who are doing it, essentially. That's why I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes or anything, and I'm not against homosexuality or anything like that, but there is an agenda behind it. There is an agenda. There is something being pushed here, because they are trying to break down the male too. When you try and take over a species, you destroy the male first, because that is the warring side of it. And they've tried to destroy the family unit from the center outwards, and then destroy the male. And it's happening, and it's working.
Wow, that's pretty scary stuff, Max. The family unit and then the male, and yeah, I can clearly see that. Not to be confused, Max, with the idea that we are heading into the age of Aquarius and we are rebounding with the feminine energy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's going to happen anyway. We're leaving the age of Pisces and going into Aquarius. It's just how we handle that crossover. Whenever there's a change of eon, there's always a death and rebirth. The number 13 is the symbolic number for death and rebirth. It's representative of Pluto or the Tower card in the Tarot card deck. It's the end and the beginning. And right now, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Max. Right now.
We're on the precipice of the death and rebirth point. So there has to be the death of the idea of the old way of thinking, which is the old way of thinking, which is the Piscean age of thinking, which is the Christian doctrine that we've been pushed into, and that they will find a way to crush that thought and then push the transhumanism agenda. I don't know if they're going to get away with it. I don't know if it's going to happen. I really don't know, but that's the plan. That's the agenda. To cull the population down, which I believe is a lot less than they say it is, to cull the population down, to have a one-world army, a one-world religion, which is based on Satanism. Satanism is just service to self, really. Satanism is just to serve oneself in all base pleasures, in every base pleasure available. And that was the plan, and to have the tiny elite which control all of that, and then the masses to be serving them. Once again, the Egyptian society was the perfect way. was the perfect setup because they had the pharaohs and the rest worked. So they want to try and base it on that again.
Real quick questions here. The capstone on the pyramid you mentioned, the gold capstone.
Yeah.
I clearly remember the gatherings all over the planet during the whole 90s. We were so excited to go to the Great Pyramid of Giza to watch the gold capstone be reunited with her in 2000 when we turned from 1999 to 2000. And then it didn't happen. What happened?
Yeah. Okay, I think that there has been some setbacks in that, because they make mistakes in their agenda, and I think that there's been some setbacks. And I think that there, from inside these factions, there has been some people and some certain consciousness that have stopped, that have seen the mass torture that humanity have gone through, and are trying to delay the agenda. And actually, I think it was in August of 1999, I was in the UK, and there was a full solar eclipse. And I remember that when that happened. And on that solar eclipse, something happened in the Giza Pyramid, the central Giza Pyramid. And when people were going around looking at it, they fenced it off for a 10-minute period, and a ritual went on inside of there. And I'm not sure what went on. They have all these calendar dates where they do all their things. The two most powerful days are the winter and summer solstice. And interesting enough, my sister is born on the summer solstice, and I'm born on the winter solstice. So those key dates are always done and used for major satanic rituals. I mean, there's a lot of other information we probably don't have time to go into now, but the connection to Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard and the moon trial ritual that was done in the late 40s, which they were trying to introduce, trying to birth through a ritual, a negative, as high a negative being into a body as possible, and bring that forth as like an antichrist type being. And something did happen there. I'm not exactly sure what it is, and it's connected to the Bush family, and it seems like Father George Bush is behind a lot of this stuff that's gone on. I think that he is behind a lot of the Project Mannequin and the American version of Project Mannequin is Project Talent, and the Project Ibis is directly connected to George Bush, and I think he placed his DNA into the 42 children that were involved in Project Ibis. And they've been tracking these 42 children for their whole lives, because each one of these 42 children has blood prime. And they are looking for a specific entity. They were looking for one specific entity within these 42 kids who would be able to take a certain role at the time we're in now. I hope I haven't gone off track. I was just kind of speaking.
Oh, no, not at all. It's all fascinating, actually. I'll definitely have you back to, another time. You're part of the Truth Tonight and Revolution Radio family now, so, we can talk about other things another time. But fascinating stuff. Can we ever get our 12-strand DNA back?
They can't stop it anymore. And we're slowly over the next. There's actually, interesting enough, there's a lot of people from because Mars used to be a bustling, beautiful planet. It used to be an incredible planet where a lot was going on. And the Alpha Draconis did to Mars what they're doing to this planet. They've done it to many other planets. They're trying to link up. They turn each planet into a prison planet. That's how they think. They're total and not 100% predators. So and the most beautiful of all, the gem of this corner of the galaxy is Earth. If they can link up and turn this planet into a prison planet as well, and link it up to all the other ones, they've got this kind of giant prison of like 10, 12, 15 planets all linked together. Now, there are a lot of people on this planet now who were from Mars at that time. Now, the redheads on this planet are indicative of the Mars beings. So when you see that bright red hair, those beings are Mars, from Mars, have had high Martian DNA.
And were the Martians cool people?
I think that you have to look at that they're good and bad. The planet itself is a warring planet.
Yes.
But there was totally some incredibly beautiful people there. Yes. Yeah.
Many believe that what we're doing now, in regards to the 12-strand DNA, many people actually believe that we are activating and we are,
but
opening
becoming telepathic. Yeah, it's coming back again.
Yeah.
And as those abilities come back, that's the 12 strand kind of adding back on again. Like I notice it more and more and more. And when we're at 12 strands, they really don't have a chance anymore.
Okay.
So we are desperately trying to stop. The ascension process is really symbolic of us standing 12 strands back. It's just one and the same thing.
They say the number 12 is the number of the master.
The first master number is 11. The second master number is 22, and the third is 33. 12 means the end. 12 is the ending.
Okay.
So when 12 is it's the most that, well, I don't know if that's true. I was going to say it's the most that a human being can hold, but I've actually heard that a human being can hold.
Right.
But what it is there are 12 predominant species in this corner of the galaxy. Feline species, human species, AIs, crystalline species, elementals, insects, orb-type beings, and there are 12 different types. 12 different core species. Now, if we had 12-strand DNA, we'd be able to incorporate all the consciousness of all those beings into the human body, and so we would have complete understanding of how it works on a collective, grand scheme level. Now, that by us separating it down so we'd only have two, which are the warring two, because reptiles and mammals just don't get along at all, and placing it within one body, we're all always at odds inside ourselves.
Yeah, right.
People don't get on with each other.
Right. That's what we're projecting outwards.
Yeah.
The war that's inside. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes absolute sense. It makes sense that we're so schizophrenic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Yeah. And some people have higher reptilian DNA, and some people don't. And what the IBIS project was looking for people with royal Anunnaki DNA coming from the Enki and then Leo bloodline, which is the first ones, which is back to the symbolic Garden of Eden. And that was what each one of the 42 kids connected to IBIS had. And that's what they were looking for. A lot of those children were actually killed when there was an escape attempt happened in 1979. I wasn't killed. Obviously, I'm still here, but a lot of them were, and the rest of them are being tracked and have been tracked. I've been tracked my whole life. I had a homing beacon removed from my molar tooth in 2010. So
kind of like a GPS thing?
Yeah. It was an etheric one. I actually implanted myself in Atlanta, at the end of the Atlantean time, so that at this point in time now, I would remember the things that I'm remembering.
Gotcha. It's fascinating. The Montauk and time manipulation projects, what was your relationship to that? Because that's another whole fascinating topic, and we only have a few minutes left, but if you could just give us like a sort of a summation, that'd be great.
Yeah. Really quickly. So when they realized in the 30s and 40s that they couldn't control the masses by physical force, they had to start doing it covertly, and then they realized that the way to do that was with mind control. Now, mind control has been going on, certainly, if you go back and read the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it gives you details on how mind control works. This is nothing new, and it was certainly in Atlantis they were using mind control. It's just that practice was honed and refined by the Nazis. And this information about how the trauma-based mind control was given to them by the Zeta Reticula, which is kind of the tall grays that are around. Okay, well, in Montauk, they were testing out time dilation, time experience, time travel experience, and manifesting things through reverse engineered technology from crashed UFO. So the trip seat or the chair that they use at Montauk, which is in Montauk Island, which is off New York, was an underground base where they were messing around with time to see if they could go back in time or mess with certain events and then see how that would happen and how it reacts to present time events. It was all boys that were used for this because there's something about the expressive, explosive energy of the male that works, whereas the female energy is hidden and within inside. The male sexual energy is pushed out and projected out, and they needed boys for that. So they bring the males to a certain level of sexual excitement, and these males are picked specifically for their specific DNA and PSI abilities, and then they were testing them out. Now, a lot of these young boys got shot out into and put into other timelines and bodies, and they have no clue what's happened. They don't know where they are or what's going on. And they're walking around thinking, having no clue about what their life is or what's happened to them. And a lot of them end up in mental institutions. A lot of them end up as bums on the street. When you see a bum on the street and he's sitting there and he looks like crap and he's been drinking, a lot of these guys are the fallout from the mess-ups at the Montauk experiments.
Wow. And how many, I mean, as far as with Montauk, I mean, how many?
About 100,000.
Really?
About 100 over the period of about 25 years, 20 years. They used about 100,000 boys, and Stuart Swerdlow has some absolutely fascinating, extremely accurate information on that, and I remember Stuart from connections to that.
Wow.
Aleister Crowley was directly connected to the Montauk experiment too.
Wow.
He was working on that as well. Yeah, I know. Not many people know that, but he was directly involved in it.
I'm definitely unaware. We have a question from the chat room that came in at the very beginning of the show, actually. In altered states, the person is saying that in altered states that they've met up with Obama, who seems to be in a small room with a few guards and seems concerned with the info that this person is writing relates to him, the person that's chatting in the chat room. Is the real Obama being held against his will and the world is seeing his clone?
The strangest thing is I have had recently, over the last 2 months, 3 or 4 or 5 different dreams with Obama in it. And he is there talking to me and giving me information about jump rooms, about Mars jump rooms. Now, I never knew anything about that before. Like 6 months ago, I never even thought of it. Never even thought of it. And he's there, sitting cross-legged, kind of in a meditative position, and he's telling me about these red jump rooms to Mars. And the Obama that we're seeing on TV now is not the real man. That guy was taken off a long time ago. This is a clone that we're seeing.
Okay. And you know, I've heard that a lot, and a lot of people even say the energetics, say a lot about an individual, and that his energetics, what he exudes from himself are completely different now. I have no comment on that whatsoever, but as far as the jump room goes, I've definitely, for the last couple of years, I've interviewed Andrew Bashago, who also claims he was part of the Mars Jump Room program as a child, and says that Obama, he was with them, so in that mission. So it's quite interesting, more will be revealed. That's all I can say. And then I just want to let you know that there's a gal that says, "Hi, Max. Cindy Brewer here. You go, Max. Speak your mind uninhibited."
Well, that's very kind, Cindy. Thank you very much.
She's in the chat room, obviously listening. So you have a lot of support for what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. You will always get support. Like I say, it's courage. And for you, it's kind of sad, Max, because if you choose to come forward and reveal to the world the secrets, the unseen, they track you down in black vehicles, or the men in black are trying to hurt you or make you fearful of them or threaten your life. If you don't do anything, they hire you to threaten other people's lives. So
even in
right?
This interview I just had with you, I've had there's been 2 or 3 different attacks with sound weapons through the top of my apartment building. They use sound harmonics to try and shut down my throat chakra.
Yes.
And they had done that 2 or 3 different times just in the last couple of hours we've been talking.
Yes, and I'm aware of that is happening, and I'm sorry that they're doing that. And I want to thank you for being able to proceed through the show, because you did really well, Max. You've made it all the way. I mean, we probably have another minute or 2 at the most, and so you actually succeeded in something that doesn't happen too often around here. We usually get our show interrupted. I can't hear you. You can't hear me. I mean, it's great. So we got through it, which means there are a lot of people thinking about you in high spirits, including myself and everyone here at Revolution Radio. So, it seems like this is a safe place for you to tell the truth.
Yeah, there's a lot more to tell that I could go into about my story. I just wanted to give an overview of where I'm coming from consciously right now, this time. But maybe another time I'll go into, exactly more about, what actually happened to me. Because I do, I have those memories. I just wanted to give you an overview, Roxy, of where I stand on things at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. And we will definitely have you back, Max, and we can get more, now that you've been introduced to my audience and, gave the overall view of where you've been, then we can start looking into very current things and your interactions with them and get a little bit more detailed about your life,
Yes, And I'm working on deprogramming at the moment because I have a lot of, and there's still, because of the amount of MK that I went through, there is still layers and layers and layers that are involved there, they have levels and gatekeepers. When I get to a certain level of information, I start touching on something that I'm not supposed to touch on. There are literally gatekeepers there, which block and pull the thought of the memory from my head, so it doesn't allow me to go any further. So I'm working on doing some deprogramming, and I was actually going to work with Stuart Swerdlow to do some deprogramming. So this is where I'm at right now.
Excellent. Max, you have a lot of support. Again, we just got another one saying, Max, this was an incredible interview. Please come back soon. So they love you. The audience loves you, Max.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Roxy. Thanks for the opportunity. I feel very comfortable
Karen,
with you.
and then we got another one. Karen says, Roxy, thank Max for coming forward. So you're just getting the love, Max. You're getting everybody just embracing what you're saying. You don't have any troublemakers, and people appreciate and recognize what you're doing, Max. So you have a home here. You're always welcome to come back. I can't wait till the next time you come back. Looks like the audience can't wait either. You did really excellent. I really do not think you're going to have any more problems this evening and with anything. And the interview, you've done fabulous service to humanity. One last question, and then we're just going to probably split right off here into the next show. Somebody is asking if you are a clone.
No, I'm not a clone. No.
Okay.
I was genetically put together, but I was carried inside a woman, inside of my mother, inside of my carrier. So no, I'm not a clone. No.